Mick Lynch, Duke of Northumberland. So this is a protest at the further stage in the Commons of the passing of the minimum service levels, which is a bill brought in to suppress the trade unions, to stop effective strike action in our country. So this is a TUC demonstration. At short notice, it has to be said, because the bill's been brought in rapidly tonight. It's come back from the Lords. There were some amendments put through the Lords that were helpful in some ways, but they'll be overturned tonight, and they'll be looking to get this through the summer recess, which is coming up quite rapidly, and then we'll get regulations from there which will ban effective strike action if they have their way.
And why would they want to get it through so quickly?
Well, it's been a long time coming for them, and they want to get it through so that the rest of our action, we've still got disputes on the railway, there's still a national teachers' strike, there's strikes in the public sector, the nurses and the civil servants, and they'll want to make that illegal effectively through the rest of the summer, and it's part of their manifesto that the unions should be done in and the bosses should be given free rein.
And you think that will be the ramification of this? It's not just providing minimum service?
No, I mean, companies try to run a minimum service, and any company would tell you that they do that when they've got a strike on. They try to get managers to run services in some sectors such as healthcare. There are voluntary arrangements. What they want to do is say to employers, you can do whatever you like really from now on. You don't have to concede in negotiations. Part of this law is that individual passengers on the railway, individual companies and businesses can sue trade unions if we don't comply, and what they want us to do is instruct our members to go to work during our strikes, and we'll be served with work notices and other means by which we have to break our own strikes. You wouldn't believe that if it was made up, that you have a strike, you call a strike under the law, and then you've got to break your strike yourself. So they could fine the union millions of pounds, and our members can lose their jobs if they don't obey this law and obey the instructions of Grant Shapps that they've got to go to work during their own strike. So it's preposterous, really.
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg said that it was farcical to say that you might lose your jobs if you don't go to work on a strike day. You don't agree with that, then?
Well, we believe that's what's going to be in the law. I mean, we'll have to see how it comes out in the final stages. But if you don't have enforcement, if you say to 1,000 people out of 10,000 that are on strike, you must go to work, and they won't go to work, it will have no effect if you don't sack them. So I don't see how they're going to get this through without fairly draconian steps against people who refuse to go to work. We'll have to see, but that's certainly the intention, that if people won't comply with a work notice, you will not have a lawful dispute, and anyone that takes action in what's called an unlawful dispute can be dismissed.
The direct result on your union will be that, I suppose, the country will get their trains back. They'll be able to, go to work again. I mean, what are the other ramifications on the country?
The ramifications are that people will get poorer. It will affect everyone in Britain if there aren't strong unions. Let's not forget that we've got 0 hours contracts, we've got bogus self-employment, we've got the gig economy. People are getting poorer year on year because the unions haven't been able to fight the erosion of pay against inflation effectively. That's only going to get worse if our unions are emasculated and we haven't got the strength to fight back. So it's vital to every worker, whether you're working in the City of London or working in your local school, that you have a strong trade union that's going to fight back and try and get you a decent deal in terms of wages and conditions. And this is about our emasculation. If it was happening in Russia or China that the unions were being attacked in this way, this government would be rightly condemning it, but they're doing it in their own backyard in the name of minimum service. If some of these services had a minimum service all year round, we might be in a better position, but there's no minimum service law that a health authority or that a school or that a council has to put in, or a care home. So if we had minimum services, none of our industries would escape fines. It's only the workers, when they're in dispute with those companies, are going to be subject to these draconian laws, and that's not right.
Well, the argument as well is that you are providing, if you're in a paramedic, you are providing minimum service levels anyway.
Well, during the paramedics dispute, they did undertake to provide a minimum service, and people, firefighters and paramedics and nurses and doctors, have come off their picket lines through voluntary agreements. We're not opposed to that. That's up to those trade unions and those employers to deal with that. But for a government that says it wants to cut red tape and get out of people's lives, they're imposing themselves on trade unionists' lives and making effective action illegal. And that is a massive step for any government to take. And it's a wrong step, and it's got to be reversed. And we're saying to Keir Starmer and the Labour front bench, they've got to commit to repealing this law, vote against it tonight and repeal it in the first 100 days of any future Labour government.
Can you rely on him to repeal it?
Well, apparently I'm hearing that he said it again this morning. I met somebody this afternoon on the front bench who's responsible for the new laws. Angela Rayner has said it recently, and I hope she says it tonight. This law is doomed. We don't think it will work, and we believe and we hope that the next Labour government will repeal it as soon as they get into power. That's what we're being told, but it will be up to us as a trade union movement to keep the pressure on Labour so that they don't renege on that commitment.
What will be the ramifications if they did renege?
Well, if they renege on that, I can't see a future for the formal connection between Labour and the unions. They understand that workers need rights. It's not just these rights, it's the stuff where our members were all sacked on P&O a little over a year ago with no rights whatsoever. It's getting more flexible hours legislation, it's getting the right to have a recognised trade union, it's getting rights to go to a tribunal for unfair dismissal from day one in your employment. There's a whole raft of rights that we need in this country, including adjustments for the minimum wage for apprentices and young people, and all sorts of measures that I think people are crying out for, and Labour can deliver if they are determined in their next government to do so, and I hope they will.
Just on some news today, the DfT have announced that they may repeal Wi-Fi from trains. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's ridiculous. If they want to add to the quality of service on trains, they cannot strip out Wi-Fi. People use the train because they can get some work done in a relaxing atmosphere, hopefully. They need the facilities such as catering, so you can get a cup of tea and a sandwich and a hot meal, hopefully. You need a buffet car, you need Wi-Fi, you need comfortable seats, and you need a decent level of service. It's the 21st century. For a government that says it's all new tech and wants to deliver a 21st century economy, to say we're going to strip Wi-Fi out of trains that have got it fitted is a ridiculous step, and it shows how out of touch they are, not only with working people but with business people in this country as well. I think everybody's shocked by such a stupid statement.
They're blaming you for it.
Well, I don't know how I'm to blame for it. I used to work on trains and put Wi-Fi in when I was on the tools on Eurostar. So I worked on the most modern rail fleet that we've got in this country, 21st century technology, but the rail minister seems intent on taking that out. Perhaps we'll go back to semaphore signalling on the railway next as well.